ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to all our participants and presenters, and I'm exceedingly proud, and I've got lots of joy in welcoming you to this seminar on Boer Goat production. Oh, not just Boer Goat, Kalahari Red, indigenous veld goats, very, very welcome. We're going to start with the first presentation from Antoinette Dry from Pretoria's region, and she is a Kalahari Red breeder. The rest of the presenters will follow after Antoinette, and afterwards we can have a Q&A and discuss some of your questions. Presenters, please tell us your name, the breed of goat you breed with, and what your plans for the future are. And the one question I can ask the three of you by now is, why do we not get goat meat in retail? If you can work that in your presentation, me and a lot of our participants will be very interested to know. Thank you so much. And Antoinette, please open the floor.
Okay, can I speak?
Yes, please continue.
Okay.
And welcome.
Thank you very much. So I am Antoinette Dry. I farm in the Pretoria region with Kalahari Reds, and we have about 700 animals on 21 hectares. So it is quite an intensive system. And I would like to start by telling you a little bit about the history of these animals, and then give you a bit of information. So I'm going to work from a presentation, and then which you can also receive afterwards. Okay. So just a little bit of history on the Kalahari Reds, and then how they got in South Africa and also then in the world. So in the 70s already, it's one of the youngest Boer Goat breeds, or they call it Boer Goat, but it's actually a breed on its own. As you can also see, and so in the 70s, farmers started collecting these animals from all over. And if we're talking about indigenous goats, just because for the sake of Gerhard also with his indigenous veld goats, if we refer to indigenous goats, we refer to any goat which is indigenous to any area. So that is usually goats which are just crosses. So it's not pure breeds. It is any breed which you find in Africa, in the countries, and people are bringing those together and farming further with them. So we also do a lot of crossing with them. Even now, we are exporting a lot of rams to other countries, and then people use these to improve on their indigenous goats owned to their country. So there was a few people in the 70s starting to pick these different red goats from all different indigenous breeds. And they started to select specific goats and started breeding them to improve the overall conformation. And then in the 90s, the Kalahari Red's name was suggested and then also accepted. And in 2004, the breed became part of the Boer Goat Association of South Africa, of one of the three main meat breeds, which is under the auspices of the Boer Goat Association of South Africa. Currently, there are over 100 registered Kalahari Red breeders, and this club and these animals are getting more exponentially. If you have a look also at previous figures, during 3 years ago, during that year, we had an increase of approximately 30% in our member numbers, and then also it just keeps on increasing as we go. So people are really showing a lot of interest in Kalahari Reds, and I would just like to share some detail about them with you. So Annelie was talking about the market, and if you look at the market demand, there is such a high amount of demand for goats, for breeding material, that whereas you have a lot of sheep and people are farming with 14,000, 10,000 sheep in the Karoo, for instance, on a commercial basis, where meat can be made available, you don't find this currently in goat breeds. So many farmers are still only breeding for stud characteristics and to improve these animals. So we are still working up to a point where we can say that we will have enough goats overall, meat goats, so that we can start to select these animals and also then to start to slaughter actually for meat production. If we're looking currently from the Kalahari Red side and also from my stud, Kilifi Creek, we don't slaughter any of our female animals. According to stud standards, there is certain traits which we select against and which we will also then slaughter that animal, but it's so few that only a small part of the rams which are born in a year's time gets made available, is made available then for slaughter. And those we actually just sell out of hand. So there's not available enough to make available on the market and to go to shops and to put on the shelves, which there is a demand for meat every week. So even with the numbers we are breeding with, we are not in a position to be able to say we will have approximately, say, 4 or 10 carcasses in a week's time to offer for these shops and to be able to then put this on the market. So there's such a big gap in the market for new farmers, and to increase on meat production specifically, so that we can get at a point somewhere in the near future where we can make this available. So there's a very few commercial farmers. Stud farmers are more so those ones which I've also mentioned. The more than 100 registered breeders are all stud breeders, and commercial farmers are so few. And these are actually the farmers that we will need in future to be able to put meat on the table and then also to make it available on the shelves. So it is really a matter of demand versus supply, locally and then also abroad. Like I mentioned, that indigenous goats to any area, people bring in Kalahari Reds, they bring in Boer Goat rams to improve on those traits on those indigenous goats, to increase the meat yield which they give, to make a bigger body, a broader body, a longer body, and that they use Kalahari Reds for. So the export markets is also very, very high in demand. There are limitations concerning health, like the foot and mouth, which limits us for export. But overall, through Africa, there are such a high demand where we can send these animals, and especially rams. So, like I said, to improve then on those indigenous animals. So those ewes in that areas are already adapted to that area. So you don't have that adaptation period. So you can look after that ram and give it time to adapt, and then use it on those females to also increase on that production. So the Kalahari Red has a very high adaptability to new environments. There's then also other traits which make them so sought after, and those I will also show to you. Okay, so looking at a stud animal gives you many advantages as listed compared to indigenous breeds. So as you can see on the photos, then also already during the first generation on that black ewe in the middle, already during the first born, you can already see the difference. She was mated with a pure breed Kalahari Red. And so the genes come through very strong, and it improves them exponentially. The one on the left is actually a milk goat, which is not known for a big body conformation, but this you can see already the capacity of meat she carries, and then in combination with the milk, so that is even also an option to crossbreed. So that just shows how strong these genes are and how fast progress can be made with these crosses. Then, of course, every farmer needs to have a vision and then also breeding objectives. So just to give you a little quick idea is then my vision for Kalifi Creek is to produce a beautiful, correct, and show type animal with only the very best assets, qualities, and traits to be functional and effective, and balancing meat capacity together with aesthetic appeal, be it feminine does and masculine and fertile bucks. And then a vision to ensure the epitome of top-class breeding in the Kalahari Red industry. And if we take hands and we work together on a breeding objective, it is phenomenal what we can achieve by just selecting the right animals. So these on the left are animals which are quite what you are looking for. So they are very close to the perfect animal, but there will always be space to breed and to increase on perfection. If you have a look at this, this was my first ram, which I bought in 2010 on the left. And just through selection, of course, I did buy in some rams, but in the beginning of the years, I only used my own ewes. And by putting the next best ram on them, which I could afford, I did not go and buy the most expensive ram in the country. And the one on the right was then also this year's champion on the shows. So selection is very, very important and can make a very big difference in what you do. So that is also the ram on the right. And then the one on the left was also a ram which won the championship on World Show this year. And these are all animals which are internally bred over the last 13 years. So there's just also some photos of some shows which we did. Okay, and then so I want to get to the point of why stud breeding, because we need commercial breeding, but like I said, stud breeding is very important. So you must also have a look at what is your market looking for. An attractive animal is something that everyone wants. So you don't want that poor looking long-haired animal which is walking along the street. You want the shiny, fat, good-looking animal. And that you get through selection and by following and being committed to your breeding objective. So a good representative animal according to the breed standards, and that is then also where stud breeding comes in. So we have inspections done by inspectors appointed by the Breeding Association. And according to these standards, you can then have a guideline of what it is that you need to breed for. So if we think about when you buy a puppy, I don't want to step on any toes, but if you're looking for a border collie puppy, for instance, there's so many you can buy and you don't really have a reason of why this one is much better than the other one. There is, of course, your QSA registered breeders. So, but either one can do the job. Whereas these goats are getting selected for specific traits. And the reason for that is then to be able to get to the point where we can put this meat in the market. So all these stud characteristics and the breed standards are based on the point that we want to put meat into the market. And that is then also to give you a functional, effective animal, an animal that you can buy and put in the veld and which can survive, an animal that can raise its babies and by doing that, getting more and more productive. So you must always keep in mind what is the perfect picture in your mind of the perfect goat. So that brings us back then to selection. Then just some traits of which we are very proud of in the Kalahari Reds. They are highly fertile. On an 8 to 9 month breeding cycle, we always get multiple births. If you work it out over a few years, you get as low as 200% breeding percentage, lambing percentage. So that gives you, by every cycle, the amount of animals which you have in your herd can double. That is what it actually says. So then always selecting for femininity, masculinity, which is correlated to fertility. That is also then the reason why we want as stud breeders to have a more feminine ewe. Why do we want to have a more masculine buck? Is because that is actually correlated to fertility, and which we want to get then to be able to have high producing animals. Then also, like I said, the stud characteristics. So the longer neck, which we breed for, is for animals to be able to reach higher in the branches. So to be able to utilize more of the feed which is available. And as goats are browsers, then they can reach that high branches. So the long body gives you the extra chop. So it's not only for good looks, it's also functional. So, and it has its reason behind it. The same with the long rump. The bigger rump you can breed, the better meat capacities has. Then strong legs that is placed correctly to be able to walk long distances, and for those to be able to carry heavy kids without difficulty. So we select specifically for animals with good placement of their legs, and also the ones which have hockey legs or thin legs, they get actually selected against, and also according to the breed standards, we select against that. So the broader and deeper body has the capacity of a higher meat yield, as well as the space or capacity to carry heavy kids. We always select, especially in our rams, because we have a scarcity of these animals. It's not always possible to throw out the ewe, which grows a little bit slower, but it is very important and very effective to then select on growth on your animals, on your rams, which make a very big difference to the herd. So this young ram on the left was 4 months old. He weaned on 100 days at 35 kilos, which is quite high for these animals. And then he grew up to 145 kilogram ram on the right at only 2 years of age. So you can also see by keeping data and keeping record, you can see his indexes on his kids, referring to stud books, logics, performance data. You can also select for it to have then a bigger growth performance. Then also then milk from the mother. Of course, if you have many kids and you have big kids, you need the milk to supply for them. So you also need to select for ewes which can give enough milk. I can just quickly mention that for, especially for new farmers, that twins is more suitable, and that is actually what you wish to get. As soon as you get triplets and quadruplets, is awesome for reproduction figures and for having a very high amount of weight weaned per ewe. But twins are definitely easier to handle. They take the least management and extra effort to raise them. So as soon as you get triplets and quadruplets, you need to also give these animals extra to also make sure that they will all grow equally well. Okay, then the Kalahari Red has a very high carcass quality. This ram was approximately 7 months old. It was a carcass of 27 kilograms, and it was rated A1 by the abattoirs, which we also participated in lamb jumps. So they give you a very, very good carcass, and it will be really so awesome to have this meat available on the shelves. But yeah, many people are a bit skeptical about it. But if you start to eat goat, then you'll think twice about eating sheep. So we find that the goat carcass is much more tastier. It has a little lower, it has much lower fat, and it's also recommended by the Heart Foundation because of the lower cholesterol in the meat. So you can take then your land and convert it into money by taking, so if you think about it, by taking branches, by taking grass, converting it into a good quality meat. So they are economically valuable. So just basically to start with Kalahari Reds is just to select for the right animals, to select for high performing mother stock, to do your research and make sure that the place where you will buy has a high herd average, which already puts you a step ahead, and then giving you the advantage of starting with good animals. So breed for quality and pick the right animals to start with, but then most important, like our motto says, work with what you have and strive for excellence. So that is the basic of the Kalahari Red. Okay, so I have a little bit more time. Let me just see. Okay, so it is just that we also present some courses on health management, which are specifically based on goats. And in November, we'll have a course on worm management and then goat nutrition, which works hand in hand to also raise and manage your animals to get them more healthy. So that is basically, if you don't attend the course by me, just do the effort and get yourself more knowledge and to be able to know what you are doing. Don't just speak to people, also do your own research and make sure that you start off on a good point. Okay, so I think that is what I have to say. We'll end it there.
Antoinette, what I heard you say this morning is to invest in top genetics. Rather buy one top quality ram than two poor quality rams, and to increase the genetic base of your herd, whatever the scale of your farming concern. But the foundation for profitability and sustainability is top genetics. Did I hear you right?
That is correct, yes. Because you breed as a stud breeder for specific traits, which is economically important, that puts you a step ahead. But of course, there's always a budget. So buying the best which you can, and then working with it and working yourself up.
Thank you so much. And I think we're now going to continue with the next speaker.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kehentse Mosimanyane. I am from Zepam & Co. We are farming in the Dosta region in Kagisano, Morokweng district. We do farm with goats, sheep, and cattle. But at the moment, we are doing very well on goats. We have started as commercial. We have been introducing stud rams until we are encouraged to join the stud group. So we have registered Zepamo Bulldog stud this year in January. So the idea of going with Boer Goat came at a time whereby I grew up in the family of a subsistence farming. Now, in the year 2013, I got very much involved, whereby I suggested that we develop the genetics of the animal across the board from the cattle, sheep, and the goats. And we went and bought our first ram, as Antoinette just mentioned. We bought our first quality ram in I think a year later, from 2013, that was about 2015. Later, we discovered that we started learning about stud breeding. We discovered few errors on it. We already had offsprings. Then we went on to buy another one in 2015. This is now where the mentorship came into place, because we went to buy from Desiree Ferreira of Morokweng Boer Goat stud. And then she started sharing a lot of information, which was very much of a extensive value for our breeding. Then we worked, as just Antoinette has been explaining, that sometimes based on the budget, you don't have to buy ewes, but rather get the ram. Then we kept on going on with the ram. We just made sure that it did not mate with its own offsprings. We always had a ram for the offsprings. So as a result, every 18 months we would go on to buy a ram. So as we moved on, we continued to learn more about Boer Goat. We continued to attend courses about Boer Goat's genetics. We did the junior, the senior, to understand selection, on what to be selected. And then going forward, we continue also to learn about nutrition. We continue to learn about the grazing, as Antoinette mentioned, that they have a lot of goats in a very small space. We, at the moment, we are, if we count all the goats that we have on the farm, we do just above 150 when we count everything. But now the reason for us to keep them low is because we're still keeping the sheep, we're still keeping the cows also on the same land. So we're trying to get our grazing ratios correct, and also to be eco-friendly to the land that we are working on. So now the role of mentorship is something that I would like also to emphasize on. We had Desiree Ferreira as one of the big role players in our enterprise, whereby in 2018 she invited us to her auction, Gapsaberg auction, start auction, but under commercial category. Now, having been on the commercial category, you become exposed to a lot of information, or you are even placed in a corner to execute the information that you always had access to, but have not really implemented in your crawl or in your enterprise. So we took 5 young ewes to the auction, which paid far better than when we sold them on a normal commercial auction, or when we sold them for meat. And that opened a window for us, window of opportunity, to say we must continue to work in bettering our genetics, so that later we can introduce the people in our cycles to this type of breeding, so that if you later need to sell in bulk, then you know the people around you, they of the same, I would say, same frequency. So now then we brought 5 ewes. They went through the, I think they called it scanning. It was not really inspection, to look at the basic traits, your legs, your head, your basic conformation. And only one failed, 4 went through. This was 2019. 2020, we brought 7. 2 failed, 5 went through. So that means we kept on growing, we kept on improving, and our eyes became more trained as we continued to work with Boer Goat. Then 2021, we brought 7, and 7 went through. So we didn't have any ewe failing on that inspection. 2022, which was last year, we brought another 7, and the whole 7 went, sorry, not 7, 8. We brought 8, and the whole 8 went through. So that encouraged us a lot, and we were encouraged to register for stud. Looking at the uniformity on the animals that we're having on the farm, specifically goats, the uniformity on goats, and having understood the process of selection, having understood the nutrition, having had the idea on how to separate them, having the idea on the smooth management. Then that's when we went and registered this year in January. So because of the process of registration, we could not sell on the same auction. So that means now the platform is opening up for us to sell on a club auction, to sell with other stud breeders as stud. But now we are still working on improving our head. We're still working on selection. We're still working on retaining the good genetics and working with them. So as a result, we did not sell this year. Chances are, even the year after, next year, we will not be selling. Antoinette mentioned something very important, that they are not selling any of their ewes that are doing well on the farm, which is the very same story with us. We'll be going forward, we'll be preparing now to join the shows. As you have seen in her presentation, that they have participated and actually gained accolades through different shows that they participated on throughout the country. That will be our next goal as incoming stud breeders. However, we still have the challenge that where we are working on, we are in just above 500 hectares, but it's sort of a communal land because of the land that we are leasing. It's a CPA, it belongs to a CPA, whereby you have other farms or other farmers closer to you that are not of the same view of what you be practicing. So that is a bit of a challenge, because we would say we are in a semi-communal farm setup. As much as we do have our own space, but you know, the goats, they go all over the place. So that means we must keep on trying to secure the place in such a way that you will contain your own animals and keep the ones that you do not want yours to mix with out of your boundaries. All right, now as we move on, it is very important for a beginner to have a goal, to have a vision, to say, this is what I would want to get into, and look for information, implement, execute, and having a mentor is very important, because in 20 in 2018, when Desiree invited us to Kapsaber, we were at the verge of giving up because of the drought, the lack of rain that we had in our area. But now that invitation, in a way, saved our enterprise from closing the doors by saying, okay, how do we make it work while we are waiting for the rain, while we are preparing for the auction? Then that's when we gained a lot of knowledge on nutrition, that, okay, you should supplement with this, supplement with that. That's when now the idea of keeping our deworming and vaccination program became very firm, to say, now as we are going to go this route, that means we must prevent than cure. So that means our deworming and vaccination had to be very much well placed and very much well executed, which we then started to record, to keep a lot of records. She said they weaned one ram, which was about 35 kg at 100 days. There is still a dream for us, but at least now, recently, the young rams that we did win were from where the weights were ranging between 28 and the highest was about 33, which is very good with our progress. As in one of the presentations, she showed that the introduction of the ram to an indigenous goat or any crossbred goat, the first offspring showed very much of improved genetics already, which we are the testament of that, of not buying ewes externally or those externally, but continuing to work with what we had. And they even go into the infrastructure. The infrastructure that we used, it's understanding the objective that we wanted to achieve, and we worked with what we had at the time, not entirely the fancy infrastructure, but what we had achieved the objective. So we moved to testing the fertility of our rams. We moved to, as beginners, we moved to testing the pregnancies, which our highest the rate was about 90% of ewes that conceived at a go when we introduced the ram. We experienced difficulties on other seasons, but we are continuing to work on them. So it is important to keep the records, know where you're not going right, and look for help from different experts on. If your rams are not doing well, you must approach the vet to understand what might be not going right with the ram to be not fertile. And it is good to know that upfront before before it goes for mating. The pregnancy also, to know what to prepare for at lambing season. How many goats do you expect to lamb, and how many, or to kid, and how many kids at the most you're expecting? Then in that way, you are able to plan ahead. Then all those things in combination, they brought up about our growth, that we continue to grow from one strength to the other. One of our mission is written in Setswana language, is #Katoga, basically meaning step by step, because we did build this thing from scratch, and one would say from a disadvantaged background, which now we had to look into the whole background and see as to what is that we can use to advance our objective, or to execute our objective in growing in this whole Boer Goat business. Then the last thing to mention would be collaboration. It is good for upcoming farmers to collaborate amongst themselves, and most importantly, collaborate with somebody that is already in the direction at which you want to go. Buying rams always comes very much pricey. In that way, sometimes you may not be able to afford as an individual, but if you get more than one farmer buying a ram, with us, we used to buy rams with one of my uncles, which went into genetic development with goats. And that assisted because the rams that we bought, it's the rams that we would have not achieved or even afforded on our own. Then from there, we continued to buy rams that we rotated according to the understanding of what we wanted to achieve and what we already had, and understanding the genetic traits, different genetic traits. So we continue to rotate those rams and buy them accordingly, which has proven to be very, very successful and very successful. So we continue to be grateful to those that were able to assist us with ideas, pointing us in the right direction. So that's what we have been doing since we started to intensify our growth towards Boer Goat start breeding. Though we were not start, we were just commercial, and through the efforts we were able to register start, and the animals now are being from to time the animals now are being inspected for according to the rules of the society, how they're supposed to look and all that. With that, now we'll be moving to attend shows which will just guide us going forward. All right, in my conclusion, I would like to say that working with what you have is very important. Having a mentor that will point you in the right direction and keep you going by checking you from time to time, and also you being responsible to that specific mentor. It's very important. Collaboration, especially for the upcoming farmers, also very important, that you can break down the cost. You can divide the cost amongst yourself, or especially for the expensive genetics. Then that will be it that I have to share. Otherwise, I am open for questions.
So, hello, it's Annelie again. Kehentse, you know, we take some things for granted, but many of our readers and so on are not sure what the difference between a stud breeding concern and a commercial concern is. Would you please care to explain that to us?
All right. Commercial is basically any enterprise with any type of animal that they could be selling for any objective, be for meat, be for breeding amongst themselves, but they are not really regulated. And now when you say you register stud, this is now where you have, when you become a stud breeder, you have record of your animals with from birth, with the identity numbers. The animals are inspected and recorded as part of stud, what category stud or commercial. Commercial also will differ now in this context to say when you register them as commercial in a stud head, that means excuse me, that means you can still work with them. Their errors are not for slaughter. And then you have those errors that you cannot contain or that you cannot continue to work with. Those ones are sent straight for slaughter. Those animals, by law, you should be sending for slaughter, not keeping in your kraal or not selling as a second quality out there. So then start breed. Each and every animal will have an identity, and you start to develop the history that you can look at so many years later to say this one is coming from this bloodline, and this bloodline, this is what was the strength on this bloodline. When I put this bloodline together with this one, that's why now, if you check on Antoinette's presentation, she presented the ram that she bought in 2010, and there's a ram that was weighing 35 at winning and 145 at 2 years. That ram is very different from the first ram that she had in 2010. So that is the result of start breeding. I don't know if I covered your...
Yes, you have. What I gathered from what you said was that stud breeding was all about the production of world-class breeding material.
Correct.
And I think our goats produced in South Africa on stud level are world-class. Thank you so much. We've learned a lot. I just want to ask you one more question. How have you seen people develop under your mentorship so far? Just one or two case studies to explain how important mentoring is.
All right. I am a testament of mentorship, or Tsipamo & Co., not myself per se. Our organization, Tsipamo & Co., is a testament of mentorship. But remember, we are still on a growing process. We would have those that we mentor, but we are not at a very upskilled level already. But it is always pleasant to see that somebody that was farming casually or just commercially, they starting to have good quality animals, and that the first thing that they will be happy with will be growth rate. To say, my animals now have a better growth rate. At this age, I am not used to having these big kids. Or now the fatality of my animals has went down. Ne? Then I used to have so many kids dying in a year, but it has reduced to less than 10%. It has reduced to about 5%. Ne? That is very much fulfilling. I believe big guys like your Antoinette and what they are doing, and Desiree, those that are in our circles, they should be very fulfilled to every time observe somebody growing from having just a number of goats to having now a more defined head, a more specific, with more specific objectives.
Thank you so much. That's such good news for future development in South Africa. Then we are moving to Gerhard Lourens, our indigenous veld goat breeder. Gerhard, would you mind introducing yourself, please, where you farm, and why do you farm with indigenous veld goats, and the specific breeds you farm with? We are looking forward to hearing from you.
Good morning, Annelien. Thank you very much. We farm on a 13-hectare piece of land which is situated in the northern side of Pretoria, in an area called Waterval. We've just under 600 head of goats and sheep, so it's a mixed farming enterprise. Our focus is on the indigenous goats. So our farm name is LGL, indigenous veld goat stud, and we farm with a Cape speckled goats, the Cape lobear goats, and then also the Nguni goats. Yes, why do I farm with indigenous goats? I think it's passion for the colorful indigenous animals of South Africa. You know, ever since I was young, before primary school, I had some form of farming enterprise going on in my mom's backyard when we lived in town. So the farming enterprise has been going for about 14 years now. And in the 14 years, I wish I had the photos to show you, but there's a drastic improvement. Like Antoinette also earlier showed when she started off with her first ram and what the quality of rams is that they produce nowadays. So there's a drastic improvement that comes with time. And as Antoinette and Kehentse said, selecting is the main objective, is keeping record, having statistics, and then selecting based on that to improve your animals, hence being for the commercial industry, for selling meat, or for stud breeding, which is every breed would fall in a certain array of specifications for the phenotype. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is I'm just going to mention the 4 different indigenous ecotypes that you get in Southern Africa, and then I'll go through some interesting facts of goat farming in general, and then I'll end it off with the basic things that you need, hence being a Boer Goat or Kalahari Red farmer or commercial farmer or stud farmer or indigenous veld goat farmer, the basic things that you need when you think of embarking on goat farming. I'm sure everyone can still hear me. For interesting sake, there is a chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. If you already farm with goats, you can just type a message there and say Boer Goats or Kalahari Reds or indigenous goats and Mbuzi, just out of interest sake, to keep the conversation going. So interesting facts about goats. There's about 1.6 million goats that's imported to KwaZulu-Natal, apart from the plus minus 640,000 goats being produced in the province for slaughter on a yearly basis. So that adds on to a question that was asked earlier about why isn't goat meat on the shelves. So the reason why goat meat is not on the shelves is in fact not because it's not popular or it has a foul taste, but because the complete opposite, because of its popularity and scarcity. So there's never been a point in time where you, in Afrikaans, the red meat production, or in English, Red Meat Production Institute, had to get together and say, listen here, South Africa is producing an excessive amount of goats, and we don't know what to do with these goats. That's not the case. You know, the export markets is very active. We've got a lot of cultures in South Africa. Hence we being the best rugby team in the world. I just wanted to say that. So let me continue with some interesting facts on the goats. So the biggest market, 92% plus minus in Southern Africa, is the cultural slaughter market of goats, predominantly by the Zulu nation. Marriages, to get a job, to get lucky, to get in love, funerals, if a person passes an exam, a 1-year cleansing ceremony, when a child gets married, if a person fails an exam, so it's to get rid of bad luck. When a person wants to improve their financial situation, you know, I don't believe that, but there's cultures that believe that. So all respect. To get out of a bad situation, be it at work or anywhere else, to appease the ancestors for taking a life. So the remaining 8% of goats being consumed is by the Muslims, especially for Eid, and Hindus, and then also foreign nationals from various countries: Bangladesh, Burundi, Cameroon, Congo, Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, also very big on the goat meat, Nigeria, Senegal, Somalia, Sudan, Tanzania, and Zambia. So if you guys look at the average pricing of goats, the weekly prices that's been sent through, you'll realize that goat meat, or goats, live goats, not goat meat, is the most lucrative, small stock industry to embark on, and the price speaks for itself. So on the slaughter prices that send through weekly, you're looking at about roughly, a 20 to 30% a higher price that is obtained for goats than sheep. So it's a real lucrative industry to embark on. And okay, so just back to some more facts on the goats. So with an average lambing percentage of about 220% per year, goats is one of the most lucrative farming industries to embark on. We've mentioned that. Multiples is common, and ewes can raise triplets with ease. But like the previous speakers said as well, remember, a goat only has 2 teats. So the ideal is for the goat to give you twins. When you get triplets, they can manage them, but it's usually the weaker one that would die off of the 3, especially when it's a combination of 2 rams and a ewe. The ewe is usually smaller, and she'll end up getting weaker. So then we tend to aid them. And what we're trying to stay away from is aiding the animals, because we want them to naturally be able to raise their young without having a lot of input from the human side. So weaning, we also work on, and in goats you can work on 3 lambing seasons in 2 years. So that's about every 8 months. And weaning of lambs is from about 90 days. So you can wean your youngsters from about 90 days. And that's about 3 months of age. On our farm, we separate ewes with newborns for at least 2 months, where they get separated to call it a maternity ward or a creche, where after, when the average age of the lambs is approximately 8 weeks or 2 months old, then we'll introduce a ram again to that group. So that would allow us to have a lambing season, or 3 lambing seasons in the time of 2 years. Nutrition, originally goats was used for deforestation. So goats is predominantly browsers, so they prefer shrubs and trees and bushes. They love khaki bos, which a lot of people think is a menace. But if you've got a problem with khaki bos, not sure what the English term is, get yourself some goats and they'll sort that problem out for you. So yes, goat serves as an ideal add-on to any farming industry, being cattle or sheep. Okay, let's have a look here. When some info on meat preparation, and this was a study that was done alongside with some indigenous veld goats at the ARC, with a lady in charge of the Red Meat Institute, Dr. Lorinda Freiling. And goat meat is very different from mutton or lamb. And why is this? So goat meat has much more total intramuscular connective tissue mixed with undetectable fat than that of sheep muscle. If the meats were dry cooked, short and high heat, typical of braai or pan-fried conditions, the goat meat will be tougher than that of lamb meat. The connective tissue is not turned into soft gelatinous juice and contributes to the toughness. Goat meat needs a slightly different cooking method, slow moisture cooking, allowing the connective tissue to turn into gelatin, giving the meat a special aroma and develop into a juicy and tender dish. Typical preparation method is a spit braai, as Antoinette also mentioned. So IVG, the indigenous veld goats, also embarked on this year's Lamb Champs competition, which was held in Pretoria by the institute called SAI. And the goat meat was very popular. There wasn't enough goat meat for everyone to taste. So the next competition, next year's competition will definitely be bigger. And Antoinette, sorry, I just wanted to mention, so the ram that won the competition in the goats was indigenous veld goat ram. It was a Cape Lobby ram, and congratulations once again to for them for the winning farmer. All right. So additionally, the goat carcass has a thin layer of connective tissue interconnected with fat that is just enough to enable this layer to turn into a crispy layer. Unconfirmed comments from consumers found that the older female goat animals could even produce a much more tender, juicy, and flavorsome dish compared to younger animals because of the higher connective tissue intramuscular network, which contrasts with the other red meat producing animals. So these studies have shown that on older goat females, for example, there is almost a better taste, and how can I say, there's a higher connective tissue intramuscular network. So it's a soft and tender type of meat that you get from the older goat females, which is in contrast to some of your other breeds like sheep and cattle, which is not the case there. And then, yeah, just to end off this part before we go to the basics that's required, you know, when wanting to embark on a goat farming enterprise. So a lot of people ask this, Annalyn, you've asked that, you know, we have touched base on it, and it is really the fact. So why is goat meat not on the shelf in retail stores? And you'll find that when you speak to people that don't eat goat meat, they'll tell you it's because goat meat tastes bad. It smells. And that is obviously not the case. I believe it's the case with any animal. If you would slaughter a old mature male, that it will have, because of it being full of hormones, it will have quite a foul taste. But most of them that make these comments haven't tasted goat meat as of yet. So the answer is, according to me and, you know, all the let's say enterprises we embarked on, is that there is really not enough goats. And what I want to say about the fact that there's not enough goats, and we've touched on this as well, is goats is really the most lucrative small stock farming enterprise to embark on. So there's not, the live slaughter market makes it not necessary for people to look for abattoirs and things, because they get ripped up from a young age. I'm saying I'm almost running out of time. So if you think of farming with goats, what I wanted to say is a lot of people do crossbreeding for commercial purposes, but because the demand of breeding goats is so high, I would suggest that you keep a commercial side to your farm, but you have to place focus on hens farming with Boer goats, hens farming with Kalahari Reds, or hens farming with indigenous veld goats, is to, as far as possible, keep them pure. And the reason I'm saying this is, if there's a high demand for goats and breeding goats, you're going to get a higher price for a pure animal instead of what you would get for a crossbred animal. Okay. So last from my side, so when I want to start goat farming, what is the basic things that I require? So obviously you have to have grazing or some form of food or options of food. So grazing is very important. If you own the land or rent the land, or if it's communal land, you have to have grazing available. So depending on the type of grazing that you have available, your system can be manipulated for any type of environment. So if, like for instance, ourselves and Antoinette, which has got a small, in relation to the amount of animals, a smaller piece of land, but for a large number of animals, we make use of a semi-intensive system. So animals would still go and graze, but they'll get a additive feed either in the afternoons, which we prefer in the afternoons, or in the mornings. A second thing you have to have when you want to start goat farming is a kraal or a paddock. So the size will depend on the amount of goats. You can work on 1 to 2 squares per animal. And we suggest a minimum of 4 kraals. And the reason why we say 4 kraals when you start goat farming is the first one is for your production herd that walks with your breeding ram. Your second kraal would be a maternity ward, or when the ewes give birth and they lamb, those ewes with the lambs get moved away from the ewes and the ram to a separate kraal. Your third kraal would be for the weaned ewes. So you wouldn't want your young goat ewes to necessarily take too early. So you'll have a third kraal for the goat young ewes until they're ready for ram. And then your fourth kraal, if you don't castrate your rams, would be to keep your rams separate, so you can manage a controlled breeding system. Okay, the kraal, that's the kraal and the paddock. So standard size, if you just want basic sizes, is a 10 by 10 meter kraal, and 4 of them. With goats, very important is to have partitioning between the kraals. If your kraal has got only one fence between them, the goats would tend to break it. So yeah, don't start with goat farming and tell me afterwards, I didn't know this, because they are going to break your fences. A shelter in the form of a roof. So we suggest a roof that covers 1/3 of your kraal or your paddock. So that's for rainy days. Sometimes it's days on end. In cold, windy climates, you require some side shelters as well, to prevent things like pneumonia for the goats. Feeding and water troughs, very important. So even if you farm on an extensive system and your goats sleep in the kraal, there'll always be a goat either that just gave birth or a goat that's maybe not well, that needs to stay behind. So you need to have adequate feeding troughs. Combination feeders works very well, that you can put lucerne as well as some pellets or milled feed in. And then water. Water is very important. Clean water daily. One very important thing also that we've learned and paid school fees 12 years ago is make sure your water trough in your kraal does not leak. Okay. So when it leaks and it gets into contact with manure for an X amount of time, I'm not sure exactly how long, but for days on end, you can get sicknesses coming out like coccidiosis, and that can be a very costly thing if you treat it in time, or it can be devastating if you don't treat it in time, and all your animals could die from that. Handling equipment, you have to have some form of handling equipment, even if it's just 2 or 4 panels that you pack alongside each other when you want to work with the goats, so that minimizes stress on them. You don't want to run around and catch them and grab them by the legs. They don't like that. Security, very important. Some of you might know the feeling, but there's nothing as bad as the feeling when standing up in the morning and you get notified that your kraal is empty. Yeah, I think that takes off a few years of your life. So security, very important, hence being a guard dog. Anatolians or Afrikaners dogs. Geese, You can geese. You can also have some geese. They make quite a noise. Peacocks. Alarm system. So we advise alarm system that's around your kraals, and then also some lights so that you can see from the inside of where you're staying what's going on in your kraals. Okay, so very important. You want to see what's going on there. The light doesn't bother the goat too much. They close their eyes and then they sleep. Also, before you want to start with goat farming, is even if it's online, just a basic training on goats and sicknesses. Once you've did this, you'll understand goats a bit better, and you'll also know what the startup medication is that you need to get. So even if it's just the basic things for now. Yes, there's things that happen on the farm that is not part of the training book that you will do anyway, you know, but that you'll embark on as you get to that point. So, but there's a basic set of things you need, like basic dewormers, vaccination, tick control, things like that. And yeah, so that's your startup medical kit that you would get. So yeah, from my side, I think I'm going to wrap it up. If there's any questions, Annelien, I hope this info was helpful for everyone that's tuned in, and that you could take some of this knowledge home, and that you can make less and pay less school fees than the pupils that's already done this. Thank you, Annelien.
Thank you, Gerhard. I think we've got a very good grasp now on the basics of goat production in South Africa. One question that I have for you is, are indigenous veld goats adaptable to all the climatic areas of our country? And then added to that is, I've also received a question is, can goats across the spectrum be used to control alien vegetation? As you said, kakibos, I've had references to Lantana and Port Jackson and all of that invaders.
Yes.
How effective are goats?
Okay, so when it comes to, let's start with the invasive species. So I'm not I haven't got a lot of knowledge on them, but I can only say what we've encountered on our farms. So as you mentioned, kakibos is definitely one of the things that they get rid of. So the next thing you mentioned is lantana. So lantana is a poisonous plant. What we tend to see with our goats, because we do have lantana in our camps and some of the outbound camps where we let the animals graze on, if the grazing is sufficient, in other words, the variety of grazing is sufficient for the goats, they won't gulp themselves on the lantana. So it's once they take in an enormous amount of the lantana, where that would have a negative effect on them. Training session, a FAMACHA training session that I went to with Dr. Fafa Malan, he explained that the main reason for animals, struggling and getting sick and dying on the farm, is these two things. He says because back in the day, animals weren't kept in paddocks. Animals weren't kept in camps. They could roam freely because the animal knows what it needs and needs to take in. But as soon as you put it in a camp and you put it in a paddock in an enclosed area, then the responsibility is on you. So you have to make 100% sure that at all times you know what the animals need, because they can't talk, they can't tell you what they need. A test that you can do is if you buy different types of licks from the co-op, hence being a energy lick or a protein lick or a phosphate lick, and you put it in front of the animals, they'll show you what they need and they'll eat that lick only. So yeah, okay, that's on the invasive species. So yes, they can be used. They were used for debushing originally. Kakibos, they love kakibos. They eat blue gum trees, they eat black wattle trees, and various other plant species that most of the other livestock doesn't want to touch. So definitely they can be used for that. And then your second question was, first question, are they adaptable all over South Africa? And they are very adaptable. So I think in every single province of South Africa, you'll get all 4 of the different ecotypes of indigenous veld goats. They were only introduced to the outbound provinces where they didn't originate from about 10, 12 years ago, and with great success. So exports, we've exported to neighboring countries up in Africa. We've exported to Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia, even Lesotho and Swaziland, and without any hiccups. The people is astonished with the way that the indigenous animals can adapt. So yes, I hope that answers your questions.
Yes, it does. I remember growing up with my grandfather having goats, and he always said, goats have a brain or a will of their own and a personality of their own. And they decide, today we are going to trek in the direction the wind is blowing. And how is the temperament? How do you physically manage goats with the inclination to go somewhere else? To find out what's happening across the fence or across the road.
Yeah, so there's a saying that goes is a great fence when you're farming with goats makes for great neighborship relations. Yeah, so your fencing is very important. So maybe 2 types of fencing that I can suggest only by means of what we've dealt with previously is a bonox fence or a feldspun fence, which is the fence that's got blocks. So that tends to keep them in, and then also electric fence. So goats is very scared of electricity. They will go and test the fence, and believe you me, if the fence is off for a day, the next day you'll start getting calls that the goats is roaming all over the place. So yes, it's important to have the correct fencing in place. There was an incident on another farm, someone that I know, where the neighbor actually notified the goat farmer and said, listen here, please, your goat keeps on climbing through the fence. You have to make a plan of it. And for some reason, the goats just kept on going through at weak spots because they couldn't camp off the whole place. And that neighbor ended up shooting the ram, which is very sad. But, you know, for his own safety's sake, that ram was busy eating his wife's flowers in the garden. So to keep the peace, he had to do what he had to do, you know, to keep his wife happy. Happy wife, happy life. So he ended up shooting the ram. But yeah, goats can, if they take away, like you mentioned, they walk with the wind, they can put in tens of kilometers a day. And you know, and it would come to the point where you would either lose them or someone would have picked them up along the road. So your fencing is very important. And as explained earlier with the kraals as well, when you're putting up kraals and you're making use of either wood kraals or fenced kraals, it's important to partition the kraals so there's a walkway in between them, because as soon as you've got 2 goats next to each other in a kraal with a single fence line, they would bash that fence until the fence breaks. So that's not something that could happen, that will happen. That's so fencing very important to make sure that you keep them in, to ensure a successful goat farming enterprise.
And to safeguard the neighbor's flowers.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We are now moving to Selinah, who is a goat entrepreneur of note. And Selinah, please introduce yourself and tell us what your goat enterprise consist of?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Annelien. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Farmers Weekly and the viewers. Unfortunately, my video is not showing. Oh my God. And I have a lot to talk about and to demonstrate, especially the book that I'm authoring. My name is Selinah Khutso Ntjana. Like I've said, I'm 38 years old. I'm a mother of 5 children, a wife, an author, a full-time employee, and also a part-time farmer. I'm from Limpopo province, was born in Musina, but currently I'm in the Capricorn district in a small town called Dendron. I'll talk more about my journey in farming. My journey in farming it started around in 2013 when I met my husband. He was having a goat farming with Boer Goat, and then he lost that year that I met him. He lost a lot of goat with a certain diseases that he couldn't figure out. Then he suddenly decided to sell all of his goat, and that one, it was so heartbroken. I was also heartbroken seeing him selling all the goat that he loves. Then that's where I developed the love of goat. And then I started also doing the research in the goat farming. But there's also, I had problem with my children with eczema and the allergies. And also my husband was also having a lactose intolerant problem. But in 2021, I then realized, why can't I again buy goat and start all over with goat, since while I've done a lot of research? Because from there on, I even attended some goat farming courses, the Boer Goat farming course in Potchefstroom with Mr. John Stein, who is a stud. And then I've gained a lot of experience by going to attend that course. Also, when I come back, I started realizing that in 2021, that why can't I start also my own thing? Then that's where Selinah the Goat Agri was born. So I ventured again in goat farming part-time as I'm a full-time employee. And then I learned a lot about the goat while I'm also in the farm. I learned more about the vaccination, the healthcare of goat, nutritional, since well Kehentse and also Antoinette and Mr. Gerhard talked more about goat and the nutritional values, the market and stuff. So I'll be talking more about goat milk because I've seen a lot that was going on, especially with my family, with my children. We had a severe eczema, of which we were going from dermatologist to another with no cure or no help. Then I decided to do more research in goat milk. I'm not a goat milk farmer, but then I get some of my goat milk from other suppliers. That's where I've started to do my goat lotions and goat soap from home. Then I started to use it with my family, and then the result turned very well. And also sent some sample to my family and friends, and the feedback also was promising and also fine. Then we used this product, and then it was well. And I'm busy doing a lot of product from goat milk, the soap, and also the lotions. But then the problem is that before you can venture, or what I've realized is that before I can take this product and sell it to people, I have to be registered first with the South African Bureau of Standard, of which is something that we are busy doing right now. I will explain a little bit more why I chose to produce my skin range with goat milk. And also the other thing, before I can go there with the goat milk product, I said I'm an author. So I write 2 books. The one is My Love for the Goat Beginners, explaining the importance of goat and also how we can manage our health care and also how to take our goat, a lot of things in this one for goat beginners. And the one that I love most, the one that I've authored, is this one, Selinah the Goat, which is book which I authored for children. Is a bedtime story book for our children, explaining more about different kind of goat, educating them more about the goat farming. And also it has a letter dedicated to the parents about the importance of bedtime storybooks. But what excites me is that it talks more about goat farming. And so that our children, you know, teaching children, we're teaching this new and up and coming generation. It's more to teach them while they're still young, so that when they grow up, they should know the importance of goat. Like Mr. Gerhard was saying that, you know what, a lot of people, they think goat is smelly, it doesn't taste good and stuff. So we should teach our children. I've seen that it's important for me to author this book, to write this book. Since when I have 5 children, I used to go with my children to the farm and they were scared of goat. So I decided, why not write a bedtime storybook where kids can understand more about a goat farming and different kind of goat, that they should understand that, you know what, we have different kind of goat. Goat are like human beings. We have colored, we have white people, we have Indians, same as goat. We have the Sinanen goat, the Angora goat, we have the Boer Goat, which can give us the meat, the skin is important with this, and we can get this and that out from the goat. So I wanted to show children more about the importance of goat. Then I'll explain more why I wanted to, or I'm producing this skin product. Remember, goat, it has a lot of nutrition. Goat milk has a lot of nutrition. And also the lactic acid, it nourishes the skin naturally. So that's why I started to use or to produce this goat milk product at home, because we had a problem, you know, buying these cosmetics that it is required or it was prescribed by the dermatologist. They're so expensive, and I didn't have a lot of money to buy that, since, well, me and these kids of mine, we have to use. So you find that we're using this soap is expensive, and it won't even finish 3 days and then it's done. So I ventured into this business of goat milk product, which is the soap and the lotion. So since, well, we started this product, I saw that at least we are much easier. We drink goat milk, we use goat milk at home. Even my husband, the problem of lactose intolerant is much better than before. So I wanted to share more about the nutritional values that one can get from the goat milk. It is digestibility. Remember, goat milk is often considered more digestible than cow milk. It contains smaller fat globules and a different protein structure, making it easier for people, especially those with lactose intolerance, to digest. Like I've said, my husband was also having a problem with a lactose intolerant. Since, well, we started using a goat milk product or goat milk, the situation or the problem that he used to have, it has been lessened. So, and also it is low in lactose. Like I've said, it is rich in nutrients. Goat milk is good source of essential nutrients, including protein, calcium, magnesium, and vitamin A. It's also rich in vitamin B. And also it has healthy fats, and then bone health also. The calcium and phosphorus in goat milk are essential for strong and healthy bones. For those maybe who's having a problem with arthritis, maybe they can also use it to lessen the situation. I don't have problem with arthritis, I'm just saying. And also with the skin, like since I'm busy with the skin products for health skin, goat milk is the best when coming to health skin, because goat milk has been used for skincare product like soaps, like I'm using soap, like lotions, due to moisturizing and nourishing properties. It can help and also soothe the dry and sensitive skin. So it has already been proven to my side that since I've been producing this goat milk product and also using them with my family, because we had some dry skin and also sensitive skin, not knowing what may be the problem. But now the problem is much less than before. And also sometimes you find that my kids that are busy complaining about their skin being having inflammations and itchy kind of. So it can reduce inflammation also, because some people find that goat milk is less likely to trigger inflammation responses compared to other milk, making it potential option for those with inflammatory condition. So I saw that it is so important for me to register, since I'm still in progress. I've just taken my sample to the SABS. I think it takes time. But then what I did, I went to the University of Limpopo and then take it to the lab there. So they said I have to register with the SABS. That's what I'm in process of doing, because registering with your product with a South African Standard of Bureau, it is important step to ensure product quality, to ensure safety, compliance with relevant regulations, and it can have a positive impact also on your marketability and competitiveness, and also trustworthy of your product and so forth. So I'll on this one for registering with the SABS, I will illustrate more why. Like, you are sure, especially now, if you can check, there are a lot of people who are selling skin product. If you can check, they're not even registered. We're just using this thing. And then sometimes we struggle when we have to take our product to the likes like other known stores that we can put our product to. They can't accept it because our product are not certified. So I saw that it was important, because remember, the quality assurance, registering your product with SABS indicate that your commitment to producing high quality goods implies that your product met or exceed established industry standard, which can instill trust and confidence in your customers and potential client also. And also the other thing, like I've said, customer safety. Many SABS standards are designed to protect consumers by ensuring the safety and reliability of products. So by registering also your product with the SABS, you demonstrate your commitment to producing safe and compliant items. So the other thing, you find that also we like to export our product abroad, but then we can't because we are also not registered with the SABC. So international trade kind of, if you plan to export your product, SABS registration can be invaluable. It can help you comply with international quality standard and regulation, making it easier to access global market. And also the likes like market access. Remember, registering also with SABS can enhance your market access, both locally, international. Many customers and business prefer to work with suppliers whose product are SABS certified. And this often certifies a higher level of quality and also stability. Though it's not easy, like I've said, that I'm a full-time employee, and also a mother, an author, and a full-time and a part-time farmer. But then, you know, it shows that one can make it, especially women. You can venture into farming, learn more from farming, check what is it that you can get from whatever that you are farming with. Like me farming with goat, I've learned that, you know what, the goat milk is so important, and it really helped me. You know, goat, it has been my therapy. I can tell you. I even wrote book about goat to show that it's possible. So everything that I do, it revolves in goat. I write book for children for goat. I'm using goat milk product also. So I wanted to show people that it's important also when you do business, especially when coming to doing skincare, to be registered with the SABS for certification of your product. So it's so important, but I'm not going to say much about the goat farming since, well, Kehentse and also Antoinette and Mr. Gerhard talked more about the breeding, the genetics, and also how to take care of the goat, the vaccination, the nutritional values and the likes. But then I wanted to talk more about the importance of goat milk and the product that I'm doing. But then in conclusion, as Selinah the goat agree, because we are more on goat milk, we wish in planning to have goat milk in our farm, like Sinanen goat. As you know, goat milk are scarce and on our space, especially even when you go to the stores, you only get them on just this market, 2 market, 1 or 3. So we don't have a lot of goat milk on stores. Again, we wish to be connected to any other milk goat farmers to create a relationship and learn from them. So sometimes it is good if you're a farmer, a goat farmer, to engage with other farmers. Because remember, in farming, I cannot say that there is an expertise in farming. Remember, we learn every day when we go to the farm. We learn by our mistake day by our farm. And then we also ask other farmers how do they do it. Going to the auction also, you know, is another marketing. So you go to the auction and then you check how they do things. Then I think that's the whole thing that I can say for now. Annelien, I think I'll be ready for questions.
Selinah, I want to commend you on the books that you've written on goats, and I thank you for your initiative to spread the message of goats in South Africa and the possibilities of goat farming. One question that I have for you is the recipes for your products. Was it by trial and error? Did you know somebody who could accompany you on the route towards making the products? How did it come about?
On that one, it's so funny, Annelien, because you know what, the way I was struggling with the skin problem that we used to have with my children, I did a research on the website, checking how I can make my own skin product. Like I started with the soap at first. You know, I didn't even know what is a caustic soda kind. I didn't know anything about those things. So I went to the store buying this and that, and then I have to mix my thing. I bend and stuff on the fingers while I was busy doing it alone. Then that's where I've started to see, okay, fine. Let me do more research on all these things. Then I made a research and then also find some people who can also assist us in the ingredients and stuff. But then I told myself that I am going to put them on the market. Like I've said, that we are still in the process of the SABS. so that it can be safe and also can be put on the shelf. But then I'm using it. But then I'm also using it. It's working wonderful. I'm using it with my children and also some family and friends that are also using it.
And the eczema improved after you started using these goat products.
100%, it has improved. To be honest, it has been improved, because since we started this thing, we are no longer having the inflammation, the itchiness is gone, even the and also our skin's condition is no longer like before.
Thank you so much. You've opened our eyes to more possibilities for goat farmers in the country to add value down the value chain. And we wish you the best of luck with your enterprise.
Thank you so much, Annalyn. I really appreciate.
And now we've received quite a lot of questions from our participants. And the first question that I would like to pose it to you, Antoinette: how resistant are goats to disease?
Pretty resilient to diseases, but they need to be taken care of. A healthy goat with a good immunity, with the basic feeding and health, in terms of also worm load on your farm. So you need good management, but and you can't really leave the goat on the farm, in the veld, and think that they will give you something in return. So the more you put in, the more you get out. But they do adapt very well to all countries throughout Africa up to the Mid East. And we get a lot of demand from there, and we get a lot of good feedback that they did adapt very well.
Another question that I got in the same vein is, what must the basic medical kit for goats contain, especially in wireworm areas? Do goats suffer from wireworm?
Yes, of course they do. It is actually a quite big economical problem all across South Africa. What we do and how we manage it is by doing regular fecal egg counts. So we don't administer dewormers just by on a program or certain times of the year. We have a look at the animals, we analyze them, and then also we do the fecal egg counts to determine if there is worms present in the animal, and if it's to such an extent that it is a problem. Because just administering dewormers can cause also resistance against these products, and then it doesn't help you anymore. So you need to manage it well, and then you can get up to a point where you really get resilient animals. The difference I can just quickly say between resilient and resistant is that resilient animals will carry a higher worm load, but they won't show any signs, so they won't get sick from it, and they will still be high productive. Whereas resistant animals will be your animals which will not get in that much worms, so the worm load will be less. So it is, again, we come back to selection and good management.
And then the basic contents of your medical aid box for goats. What can't a goat producer do without?
For me, a thermometer. You will also you will also hear it a lot that farmers need a scale. So how do you know if your animal is performing? You measure it. So however you can measure, you can know. So if you are not sure that an animal is sick, you take the temperature. If it has any infectious disease, you can determine it by the increase in the temperature or fever. So, and then we also use a lot of electrolytes and probiotics, which is again supplying a good support of a product to support the immunity to the best and to keep them healthy in that way. So we will not administer, again, an antibiotic, the same as with the dewormer. We will not just administer an antibiotic. We will first give it electrolytes, probiotics, and even for diarrhea case, most of the times it will clear up within a short period of time.
Then I've got two questions for you, Gerhard. The one is, how long to wait after lambing before you introduce the ram for the new breeding cycle? And Gerhard, the question is, I'm not sure if I heard correctly, but do you separate lambs from the mothers at the age of 2 months?
Hi, Annelien. No. So when it comes to the 2 months, that's actually part of your first question. So when the lambs is an average age of 2 months, then we would introduce a ram to the ewes again, but the lambs still stay with the ewes. So yeah, I hope that answers the question that they've asked. So yeah, we wean the youngsters from age roughly about 90 days. So 90 to 120 days, then we wean our lambs from the ewes.
Thank you so much. Kehentse, the question for you is, so if my goat is not doing well in my stud and it doesn't adhere to the minimum stud requirements, can I sell it commercially as a slaughter goat? And what does the ideal commercial slaughter goat look like?
All right. Anything can be slaughtered, I believe. It's just that the difference would be, where are you taking them into? Somebody on the chat section there, they wrote that only 5% of goats are slaughtered formally, and then the rest are slaughtered on the backyards. So if you're selling something to be slaughtered on the backyard, that meat is not regulated, or that particular type of slaughter is not regulated. So anything can be slaughtered there, whether it's being fed, anything can be slaughtered there. But now, if you're going to take it to abattoir, for example, there are specific guidelines that are used there. So fortunately with goats, I don't know, maybe if Anelo or Gerhard have experience with goats that are overfed, but I don't think we easily get goats that are overfed. And
excuse me, especially not in the area where you farm. Overfed goats are, I think, could be quite a rarity.
Well, everything overfed where we farm, because it's quite a tough area. So
yes.
Obviously, then if you take it to an abattoir, there would be guidelines. So before you take your goats there, do your research and find, locate to check if whatever that you are sending there will be meeting their requirements. Not to find yourself sending goats there to be slaughtered, and then later you are not getting any proceeds because it was not meeting any of their requirements. So now, to answer the question, if the goat is not doing well in your stud, yes, you cull it. As to where you take it after that, by law, it's supposed to be for slaughter. I don't know if it specifies by the abattoir, but it is not supposed to be sold as a production animal. Like for example, if a ram is not doing well by you, it is scalp, then you think you can sell it to another commercial farmer. No, it's not right. It's supposed to be slaughtered, not to be used as for breeding, because you're just going to keep on increasing or multiplying the errors in other people's head. Thank you. I don't know if I covered both the
I
questions.
think you covered it quite comprehensively. A lot of reference has also been made in the questions that I've received, warning against backyard slaughtering and the health challenges it could pose to the consumers. I'm just touching upon it and would like to hear your opinion on this, starting with you, Gerhard.
Gerhard, your mic.
Let's start with.
Thanks, Kehentse.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Gerhard,
Yeah. So
how
yeah.
is backyard slaughtering even a problem?
I would say no, but I'm gonna say why. So backyard slaughtering is not a problem as long as the person who slaughters that's the people who consume the meat. The problem will come in once backyard slaughtering has taken place and that meat is being sold, which has got there's various rules and regulations around that for health risks. Yes, and if you slaughter the goat yourself, and you raise the goat, you would know what the health situation of the goat is as well. Where it can pose a problem to do backyard slaughters is people that buy, and I'm just making an example, livestock on the weekly Wednesday or Thursday auctions. There is no reference of where the animals, there is where they came from, but I mean, no one goes and asks the questions. And most of the time, the animals are there because people want to get rid of them. So it's very important to do your own analysis when slaughtering an animal, to look at the liver, to look at the lungs. And there is various tips that you can Google on the internet as well, just to make sure that the goat that you're consuming is in fact of good health. But backyard slaughter is not a new thing. I think that was the beginning. So, everyone started by slaughtering themselves. So yes, there is a problem that can be posed if the health situation of the animal that's being slaughtered, they don't know what the issue is with it, or they don't know about issues. And then, I would say if you know you've got sick animals, once again, the responsibility, like Kehentse mentioned earlier on with the cull stock and the breeding stock, it's easy to go drop them off at the Wednesday auction. But just remember one thing, you've got a responsibility. And a lot of times, people's financial situation almost clouds that responsibility. But yes, it's very important. So people should know the responsibility that lies upon them when selling animals, especially for slaughter, but just as much important in the breeding industry. If you know a ram does not perform on your farm, or you know a ewe can't perform on your farm because she's got some complications, do not sell that animal as a breeding animal. Your name is all that you've got in the farming enterprise, hence being Kalifi Creek or LGL and once you've embarked on shortcuts, the word would be spread fairly quickly. So as far as possible, try to ethically sell animals to especially new and upcoming farmers.
Thank you. Your take on this, Antoinette?
Sorry, I was answering some more questions on the Q&A. Just give me a quick idea of the question.
Backyard slaughtering.
The backyard slaughtering, okay.
I want to add on that, like the selling of really poor genetics, even commercially, to other breeders, as Gerhard has touched upon that. How could that impact goat Africa?
Yes, it has definitely got a very big impact on farmers overall, over the country, over Africa, the whole of Africa. And I think it really comes back to every buyer. It is every buyer's own responsibility to gain the knowledge, to be able to know what you are buying. And as breeder, it is just a commitment which you do, as to slaughter the animals which are not good enough to send out. You have one name and you need to protect that. If you build up a bad reputation by selling slaughter goats as commercial goats or as good breeding goats, it will come back to you and you put yourself in a bad position.
Then I've got a question for Selinah. This participant wants to know, do you use fresh milk or powdered milk for the goat lotions? This person use raw milk for soaps, but has a challenge with stabilizing the lotions with liquid milk. Have you had a problem like this? And what challenges did you have to overcome when you first started with your enterprise?
Okay. Thank you, Annelien. I never had any problem with this study. I use fresh milk instead of powdered. So I use fresh milk, and then also on my lotion I use fresh milk. So I didn't have problem with stability on the lotion. So maybe I think it's because of the amount of the ratios that he works out on the ingredients. Maybe he's using 50% with the water and the milk. So I normally use a little bit of milk on the lotion, and then on the soap I use milk instead of water. And yes, of course, I had problem when I start with my product, because I was not sure that it will work, you know, when you experience something, but then it works out nicely. So the thing is that I'm not yet putting them on the shelf. Like I've said, that it's important to register it with the South African standard of, so that it can market itself. You know that when you go to certain store, you show them the certificate, they are sure, they have that assurance of saying, okay, this one, she's doing this, it is well certified, and then they can put it on their shelves. So I didn't have any problem when I used the lotion with yeah.
Thank you. And then Kehentse, Mr. Mosimanyane, your growth story is inspiring. Good luck with everything. How do you overcome challenges such as unplanned breeding in a communal farm setup? Once this participant wants to know.
All right, I actually answered already on text, but I'll still say hi to a cat there. Anneli?
Yes. You can.
I actually answered on text, but I'll
Yeah.
answer again.
Please do. Excuse me. If you see a cat on my screen, I'm trying my utmost to get my cat Sophie from not participating in the conversation. I'm sorry. Kehentse?
All right. With us, fortunately, we could track the patterns, the grazing patterns of our neighbors. Yeah?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, as Gerhard has mentioned, the fence, we do not have that much of a detailed fence that is stronger for our goats and our neighbors not to mix. So, but what we did, fortunately, our neighbors are a bit further away from us, so we could track the patterns of the grazing during the day. That say in the morning they graze more to our west, then that means in the mornings we must try and keep our goats more to our east, so that when theirs go the other direction, ours can go there. And then the other method was to have your dog, not your, we don't have the specific type of dogs that are meant as goat dogs, but we as shepherd dogs, we have smaller breeds. I believe your indigenous type, your crossbred type of dogs that goes with goats, and those dogs somehow they know how to keep their head. Ne? So you cannot have a ram from the neighbor coming into our ewes. Then for the rams, we crawl. Unfortunately, we crawl our rams throughout the year. They only go out in the late afternoons when the ewes are already on the crawls. So they just graze around and then they go back to their crawls. So during mating, we use night mating. So our rams still stays in the crawl because now we putting specific ram with specific ewe according to the way we divided our crawls. As Gerhard has also already mentioned, that you will have different type of crawls with different types of animals. So for that purpose, it also works. That's why we could confidently go and register for stud, because we know which offsprings are for which ram. So in that way, we try by all means. I wrote there on that answer that we have had a clean head at least for the past 5 years, that we have not had unexpected lambing that will prove that that's from an external ram. So we haven't had that. And even when you're looking at our lambs, you see the consistency with they are both paternal and maternal side, that we are on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerhard, how long to wait after lambing before you introduce the ram for breeding again? And then can you put a grandfather ram on his granddaughter? These are the questions for you.
Okay, so on our farm, where we farm, it might differ from the extensive farming enterprises, where they pick a lambing season in a year because of the weather patterns. So, but where we manipulate the feeding availability, if I can put it that way, we are in a position to have the goats on top condition throughout the year. Hence, we lambing every 8 months. So once a ewe is conceived, she's pregnant for approximately 155 days, sometimes up to down to as low as 150 when she's carrying twins. Antoinette might be off by a day or two. So after 5 months, the kids would be born. And once the kids is 2 months of age, then you can start introducing a new ram. So they would fall pregnant within the next 21 days or so, and that would give you a 7.5 to 8 months, every 7.5 to 8 months that your ewes would lamb. So that would give you the 3 breeding seasons in 2 years' time.
Antoinette, we also received a question is, what number of hectares do I need, the minimum number of hectares do I need to start with Kalahari Red production and breeding? Is there a minimum number of hectares?
No, you can do it in the backyard in the town if you want to. It all depends on the money in your pocket to buy feed. So you can farm with as many on as small a piece of land as you can afford to feed. So, but yes, of course, the higher the population is on a lower amount of hectares, the more problems you have. So together with the amount of goats, the amount of bacteria and the amount of pests and things like that will also increase. So your challenges will get more. So to give them sufficient space to not stress them out and to move around freely, the better and easier your management system will be.
We've also received quite a number of questions pertaining to information, training. Are there specific institutions or organizations that people can contact for more information specifically on goat breeding and goat production? Kehentse, where can they contact? Where can prospective breeders get more information on goat breeding?
The first place is right here with Antoinette. She's offering that formally. I've been following her, so I've seen quite a few of her notes, which are useful. And then I attended a course with another institution, I3A. I believe there's quite, I know about 4 institutions. I mentioned one that I've attended and one of somebody that is here already. Others, they can search for them online. Then from there, it is important, even if you attended a course, it is important to visit somebody that is already working with towards your goal. Like while you work towards your goal, it is important to visit somebody that is already doing that on a practical basis. The areas I wanted to come into that question that Gerhard answered of the breeding cycles that the areas differ, and with, as Antoinette has mentioned, the money in your pocket for feed. For example, with us, if I go and learn from Antoinette, it's fine, but I must still find somebody in our area that understand the area better with the challenges in the area, from feeding to bacteria and worms and diseases that exist on the area. For example, in our area, when we graze between 10 and 12 hectares per one large stock unit, which that is proportioned to one large stock unit to 7 small stock unit. Yeah? That might not be accurate in a different area. So when I calculate my grazing ratio, will not be the same as somebody else calculating their grazing ratio. And that is important for me to find the information on the specific area that for the same enterprise of Tsepam & Co. functioning in Tosca would be very different functioning in Zeras, for example. It's still in the Northwest, but the areas are totally different. So we'll work totally differently from one season to the other. That is very important to say that there's no specific template Ne? And you see, Gerhard is using that system of having to wean the lambs while their mothers are pregnant. Unfortunately for us, we must wait. We must wean and only then introduce a ram after flush feeding. Without flush feeding, our conception rate becomes very low. Otherwise, the money in our pocket to feed must be quite a lot to achieve that type of system. So it is important to understand from one area to the other, because somebody else will hear Gerhard saying that he's getting 3 lambing season in about 24 months. They will want to go and try it. And we tried it before. It didn't work out nicely because we couldn't afford the feed. And our conception rate kept on going down. But once we adopted another method, then the conception rate went higher. I don't know if I answered all the questions.
You've answered it very correctly. Thank you so much. I'm going to give every member of the panel now 30 seconds on their wishes for the future of goat farming in South Africa and goat production. And that would be the end of this very informative conversation. Antoinette.
Thank you very much. And also thank you for the opportunity to be part of this webinar today. And we will just keep on doing what we're doing and always strive to improve, and working together with all other farmers and to just improve the genetics as much as is possible in one's lifetime.
Selinah, your take on the future of goat farming in South Africa?
Okay, I wish all the goat farming the best as we learn almost every day from our daily basis farming, and also for the skin product production. Remember, success in the skin product industry or any business comes from the combination of quality, marketing, and customers trust. So we should always focus and put our passion and be patient always in whatever that we are doing is doable. We can do it. We must not lose hope. So let's do it, farmers.
Thank you. Kehentse, your wish for the future.
I will start by appreciating this opportunity on this platform. It's a great learning platform, as much as testing what we have, the knowledge we've collected over a period of time. I believe goat farming should continue to grow, so to address the need that is already, the demand that is already out there. So we only hope to develop our genetics as Tsepamo & Co. To be of the world class. We keeping on learning on organizations like Kalifi Creek and others that are out there. Thank you very much.
Gerhard, the last word belongs to you.
He's not here.
Okay, thank you so much to Gerhard in his absence, and to everybody from Farmers Weekly side. We wish you the best of luck for the future. Thank you.